Hi, I'm General Booty. I'm the quarterback at the University of Oklahoma, and you are now tuned into the greatest podcast on turf. Enjoy.
What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to this week's first episode of the greatest podcast on turf. I'm Anthony.
I'm Ryan.
Today we are back. We are here. It is officially fantasy football season over here at the greatest podcast on turf. We have our, I would say, top 25 fantasy football quarterbacks going into the season. We're going to rank them 1 through 25, give a little bit of an explanation why some guys are super high, some guys are super low. With that being said, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. We are going to be pushing fantasy football content from this week all the way until September when football season starts on all platforms, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So be sure to follow us on all our social media accounts, even on Twitter. As always, here's a word from our sponsor.
Little Italy Pizzeria, located in Townsend, Delaware. Come in, check it out. Let them know that the greatest podcast on turf sent you. They will take care of you. So prove that you're subscribed and that you listen to us. They will hook you up with an additional discount. With no further ado, we're going to dive into this list. This week we're doing quarterbacks. Next week we got tight ends. We're saving the running backs and receivers for August for the prime time of fantasy football. That's when we're going to bring those out. Right now it's quarterbacks.
Yep.
Our number one consensus, it is a tie between Mr. Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. I had Pat Mahomes at 2. Anthony had him at 1. I had Josh Allen as my quarterback 1. There's not much exclamation to do with these two guys. They are the best two quarterbacks in fantasy football. Could be fantasy football history for all I know. Josh Allen is an absolute monster. Last year he was number 2. Probably to Patrick Mahomes if I had to guess.
Yes.
The 2 years before he was number 1. The difference between him and Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion, is his rushing ability. He rushes for about 600, 700 yards a season. The last 2 seasons, 700 rushing yards with the rushing touchdowns. I mean, both these guys I'd love to have on my fantasy team.
Yeah.
And that's the rushing is just why I put Josh Allen over Mahomes.
Yeah, and then you want to look at, in terms of the Patrick Mahomes side, Patrick Mahomes coming off the year that he lost his best weapon, arguably in Tyreek Hill, throws for 5,200 yards, 41 touchdowns with only 12 interceptions. Didn't have as many yards as Josh Allen. He had about 360, and he scored 4 rushing touchdowns. So not quite where Josh Allen's at, so I can see why you put him as QB1. But with Patrick Mahomes, his lack of rushing ability gets made up due to the fact of the passing yards he throws and the passing touchdowns. He threw for about 1,000 more yards than Josh Allen and threw 6 more touchdowns. So I guess that makes up for it in one way or another, depending on how you look at it. I'm not sure the point breakdown, depending on how you play.
Pat Mahomes had 18 more fantasy points.
So not much of a difference. It just depends on who you have.
Yeah. Your preference.
Just personal preference, but I mean, these guys are two guys that you'd love to have on your team. Clear positional advantage. If you can land any of our, I would say, top 5 or 6 quarterbacks, it's a clear position of advantage. But I mean, you never know with these quarterbacks. I would say to have success in fantasy, you probably want around a top 10 quarterback to really try and push your team over the hump, because after that, you're in the 15-ish range. Then you got the waiver wire guys who are always...
I don't think the gap between 10 and 15 is that big anymore. Definitely not this year. We'll touch on that later. Next up, we got Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Number 3 for both of us. Last year, he was the quarterback 3. A little bit of a tier gap from Mahomes and Allen. He scored 40 less points, give or take 40, 50 less points. Also played 2 less games, so you can argue he would have had the number 1 quarterback. He had 13 rushing touchdowns. Like I said, with these top guys, these 3 top guys in particular, there's really not much to say. They're going to ball out. They're going to be top 5 no matter what. And that's really all it is for me.
Yeah, I mean, you got the Eagles who have their whole offense coming back with bringing in DeAndre Swift, who some might say is better than Miles Sanders, to help make the offense more dynamic. The O-line still set, still has his top 2 weapons there, and Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert as well. So, I mean, Jalen Hurts probably looking at another top 3 fantasy quarterback year. Not as 22 touchdowns, but he did have 13 rushing touchdowns and almost 800 yards rushing on a year. So, I mean, you're probably right. He probably could have finished as QB1 if he played all the games. But as Ryan alluded to, if you're getting one of these top 3 guys, I mean, you're set at quarterback for the year, barring injuries. These are the 3 best quarterbacks in fantasy football because they do bring you that rushing ability, because they do bring you the passing upside as well, and their offenses are stacked. So getting one of these 3 guys, they're top 3 for a reason. The points don't lie, and the film don't lie as well. So Jalen Hurts was our number 3rd ranked quarterback.
Next guy is somebody that we can actually talk about a little bit. Lamar Jackson.
Yup.
Anthony had him at QB4. I had him at QB5. Not a lot of difference here. Not a lot of difference for these top 10 guys.
No.
Lamar is a guy who should have a bounce back year this year. Last year he was at QB 14. He only played 12 games. It was a pretty shitty year for the Ravens, if we're going to be honest.
Yeah.
There was nobody really in the receiving corps besides a Mark Andrews. The running backs got hurt. It was just an all in all. The O-line got hurt. It was just a bad year to be a Baltimore Ravens fan. Bad year for the offense. I think Lamar bounces back in a big way this year. Could easily be QB1.
Yeah.
I think the upside is there without a doubt.
Absolutely.
Should definitely be in the top 10 if he plays the full season. You bring in Odell Beckham Jr., you bring in Zay Flowers, you get the O-line back healthy. I'm not sure if they added anybody to it, but with these acquisitions, with the team getting back healthy, I think it's pretty clear. J.K. Dobbins coming back also. I think it's pretty clear the Ravens want to start throwing the ball, maybe being a little bit of a better offense because they have been a pretty shitty offense their whole entire lives of John Harbaugh. No offense, John, or Jim. Not sure which one you are.
I think it's
But
one of them.
I think Lamar is in for a top 5 fantasy season this year, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
No, absolutely. And what did you? He only played 12 games.
12 games.
In 12 games, finishing as QB 14 isn't terrible. And he was balling. He threw 2,200 yards, 17 touchdowns, and he had about 800 rushing yards in that time. So, I mean, you're getting Lamar Jackson, who's coming back. He finally got his big payday. They revamped the offense. I don't know how much you want to buy into the hype of Odell, but they have a healthy O-line. They have a rookie, one of the best receivers in the class, and I think it was my receiver 3.
O-line's solid. I really don't mean to cut you off, but Ronnie Stanley, Ben Cleveland, Linderbaum, Zeitler, Morgan Moses.
Yeah, I mean, it's a solid O-line. And again, J.K. Dobbins, another guy who I think is in for a monster year this year. I think this Ravens offense is going to be firing on all cylinders this year. Lamar could be going for another MVP campaign, and like you said, could very well finish as a QB1. Finishing as a top 15 quarterback in 12 games, that's good, right?
I mean, he had 240 points, so if we just give him 20 for those 5 other games, that's another 120 points. It's 360. Hurts scored 380.
So I mean,
he probably would have been QB7, give or take.
Yeah, so I mean, that's assuming it's just 20 points a week, not including the weeks.
If he did 20 points a week, he would have put up Joe Burrow numbers.
Yeah, so I mean, there you go.
That's number 4.
You got that with Lamar. That's why he's number 4. I could very well see him being even top 3. I thought about moving him over Jalen Hurts, but just with the Eagles, I think they're going to be good this year.
It's hard to put somebody over somebody that just did it when they didn't do it. But Lamar, I could definitely see myself taking him if people let him fall, because they might. People have last year syndrome, and they just,
Yep.
Next up, we got Joey Burrow. Anthony had him at 5. I had him at 4. He's just a little bit safer than Lamar for me. I think this team is bust-proof. Every single Bengal is arguably bust-proof.
Yeah.
They're going to do what they're going to do. Joe Burrow last year was the quarterback for it. Had 365 fantasy points, 4,500 yards, 36 touchdowns passing, 5 touchdowns rushing. So he does do a little bit of that rushing upside for you. 250 yards. It ain't crazy, but he can. They have shown that he can do it. But yeah, Burrow for me, top 5 quarterback. Wouldn't surprise me if he was QB1.
Yeah.
He just doesn't have the rushing ability of like Allen, Hurts, Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
However, he does have the best 2 receivers in the entire football league, and those guys could make a splash.
The best receiving core, you mean? Not the 2 best receivers, right? Just to clarify.
I mean, it's the same. It's probably the same.
Well, when I think of 2 best receivers, I'm thinking first best, second best. That's how I look at it.
Best duo.
I wasn't trying to be a dickhead.
No,
I was just being...
Best duo of receivers in the league, and when you throw in Tyler Boyd, it's the best receiving core in the league.
Yeah.
So this Bengals offense is bust-proof. If you want somebody to come in and give you 25 points a week, that's probably Mr. Joe Burrow.
Yeah. I mean, and you got a quarterback like Joe Burrow. Yes, he doesn't have the rushing yards, per se, but he had 75 rushing attempts last year. That's more attempts than like Trevor Lawrence had, more than Patrick Mahomes had. So if he's getting 75 rushes in an offense where they have Joe Mixon, who's probably a top 10 guy, he's about top 12 for me this year. when you have the best receiving core in the NFL, and when you have Samaje Perine, who was there last year. 75 rushing attempts from Joe Burrow isn't that bad.
A lot of them are scrambles, though, because he's a little bit too cute back there. A little bit, for my liking.
Yeah, I get it, and I can see why you would say he's safer than Lamar, just in terms of because Lamar throws his body out there and he runs a lot.
And we haven't seen this Ravens offense do anything.
That's true. But yeah, I mean, I think you can absolutely justify Joe Burrow being 4 or even QB1 per se in fantasy football just because the offense he's on. They helped out the O-line again this year, brought in some guys, getting some guys back healthy. So, I mean.
Next up, Justin Fields once again over Trevor Lawrence.
For you.
He's one spot over him.
Yeah.
Anthony had him at QB7. I had him at QB6. So he is our next up on the consensus. Justin Fields finished as the QB last year? QB6 last year. He had, I see 7 on mine, but QB7 last year. He had 1,100 rushing yards with 8 rushing touchdowns, and he played 15 games. Justin Fields is a guy who, once again, one of these guys that could be quarterback 1. He's the best rushing quarterback in the league. Him and Lamar are up there. I'm not sure who I'd rather have, but I mean, Justin Fields, you got him a DJ Moore. Yeah. If you're a believer in DJ Moore, I'm not necessarily, but if you are, this team is a team to look out for. Their defense isn't the best, so they're going to be, down a good chunk. And Justin Fields, I mean, he showed he could do it last year. Justin Fields last year was having games where he was the best quarterback in fantasy. He had a couple 40-point games, I believe. Let me see if I can. 42 and 40. He had those back-to-back. He had a 24, 26, 42, 40, 23, 21, 23 game stretch. Right at that middle of the season, he was an absolute baller. QB8, QB5. I mean, he was a stud. At the start of the season, he wasn't that good. He was playing hard defenses, and the team sucked. But when you bring in a Chase Claypool, it just lights up the world. But he's a baller, and I think he's going to do great again this year. The Bears are trying to help him out, and I definitely see myself having him on my team.
Yeah, I mean, you got Justin Fields again. He didn't put up the best numbers in terms of passing, only 2,200 yards with 17 passing touchdowns and 11 interceptions. But he did rush for about 1,100, 1,200 yards with 8 rushing touchdowns. Like Ryan said, they did give him a DJ Moore. They helped out the O-line some in the draft, drafting Darnell Wright. So, I mean, they're bought in on Justin Fields again. We haven't really seen what he can do in the NFL in terms of his, the passing upside. Lamar, per se, he could throw the ball. We can see throw the ball when he was healthy last year, and then he was airing the ball out, trying to do that. We've seen flashes of that from Justin Fields, but I feel like we really haven't seen him be able to put it all together yet. So I'd rather take Lamar over Jay Fields, just based off that alone, but I can definitely see you're saying about how you might take him over a Lamar per se. And then the next guy, my MVP frontrunner this year, my QB6, Ryan's QB7.
I had him at 8.
You had him at 8? Jesus. Trevor Lawrence.
That's not that. It's 2 spots off.
Trevor Lawrence coming off of a pretty good season, 4,100 yards, 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and 9 fumbles. I'm sure that's going to be a focal point of this offseason, trying to work on his ball security. He did rush for 300 yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence is in for a huge year this year. I think he's going to win MVP. I actually have got to get down to the casino to put on some season-long
props. If you think he's going to be MVP, you better move his ass up on this list.
Anyways... Yeah, they bought it. They have Calvin Ridley for him. Can you pull up their depth chart for me real quick? I want to see something. Because I think I'm right, but I don't know.
Who are you thinking?
I just need to see the offensive line.
They have Sheriff. That's who you're talking about.
They bought in Brandon Sheriff last year. They drafted, where the hell? Anton Harris. I almost called him Anthony Harrison. O-line, Walker Little's got to get out of there. Anton Harrison will take his spot when Cam Robinson gets back. But, they helped out the O-line some. They're getting Travis Etienne back after a solid second half of last season. Bringing in Calvin Ridley. Christian Kirk had a year, and they just paid Evan Ingram. I think this offense is going to come firing out on all cylinders. Pick up right where they left off in a tight game with Kansas City in the second round of the playoffs last year. I think Trevor Lawrence is in for a monster year. I think he could easily finish top 5, top 3, depending on how the year goes. I'm very high on Trevor Lawrence this year. I'd love to have him on as many teams as I can get him in. And I think he's in for a really, really big year this year. He finished his QB7 last year, but I think he's going to finish top 6, top 5, top 4, top 3-ish.
I have him as QB8. I think Trevor Lawrence has a good year this year, but I could also see Trevor just being what's the best way to describe this? Like a 18 to 24 point fantasy quarterback, like the whole way through. Just not a lot of low weeks, but he's also not giving you like the week winning upside that I personally like kind of go for. I mean, last year he had one game of being QB1, one 30-point game in his season. That's not necessarily a bad thing because he just, as long as you're winning the games, it doesn't matter. As long as you're putting up 20, 25 fantasy points, it doesn't matter. But I just personally, I think I want somebody that can give me 30. I'm not sure Trevor's that guy. However, he's going to be, I have him at 8.
God, they're
he was
so
8
bad.
last year. The Jaguars have never been a thing. So to say they're back is absurd.
Well, first of all, they were in the AFC Championship some years ago. It was a little while ago now. And they almost beat Kansas City in the playoffs. I know it's almost. They didn't, but they were goddamn close to beating the Super Bowl champs in the playoffs.
They had Blake Bortles. That was an anomaly. That was a fluke.
They had the best defense in the league.
Could
have been one of the best ever, but they didn't keep them all together because the Jags GM is awful.
Because the Jags be the Jags.
Let's talk about the next guy. I want to talk about it. Can I start this one out, please?
Sure.
Justin Herbert. He was my QB8 and he was your 7, right? Based off this alone, Justin Herbert had a down year last year, but he threw the ball 700 times last year. That shows you enough. If you can get a quarterback that's going to throw the ball 700 times, at that point he's got to do something with it. So that's why I have Justin Herbert at QB8. He doesn't provide any rushing upside. He had negative 10 receiving yards last year. I don't know how the fuck you do that. Threw 10 picks and lost 3 fumbles. But when you got a quarterback that's going to throw the ball 700 times, I guess that warrants being a top 10. Justin Herbert, according to experts, is a top 5 quarterback going into this year. He throws the ball 700 times. So if you're down bad at quarterback, go ahead and, I guess, grab Justin Herbert, who's going to throw the ball 699 times.
Yeah, Herbert's not one of the guys I'm going to touch it on really a lot because
Scrub.
It's fair. But I have him at 7. He's going to throw the ball, like Anthony said, 700 times. He has Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Quentin Johnson, Austin Eckler. With those 4 guys, I see a lot of passes. I see a lot of passing touchdowns. I don't think this team is that good. So Kellen Moore is also the leader behind that. And he sucks, but he likes passing the ball a lot too. So it's going to be a good fantasy year for Justin Herbert. I probably don't want him on my team because I refuse to watch Chargers football. And next up, Dakota Prescott. Anthony had him at 9. I had him at 9. With Dak,
he's so back. He said he's not throwing 10 picks this year. He's so back.
He's so back. With Dak, you're getting a consistent fantasy football season. Last year, it wasn't that good. He only played 12 games because he missed the start of the season. Cooper Rush came in and took over. But Dak, overall, throughout his career, 7, 10, 14, 2, 32 when he missed basically the whole season.
Can I say something?
18 last year. He's going to be fine. He's not going to give you league like winning weeks necessarily. I don't think. But he can throw the ball around the yard and he's going to do fine.
Side note, did you know that Mac Jones and Andy Dalton, Davis Mills, Marcus Mariota, and Jacoby Brissett all finished above Ryan Tannehill last year?
Yeah, but Tannehill's getting D-Hop, and the Titans are winning the division.
I will bet you any amount of money the Titans don't win the division.
You have to give me odds because I know they're not the favorite. I don't care.
Who are we talking about, Dakota?
Yeah, I don't think there's much to touch on.
Yeah, Dak Prescott's he's back. They bought in Brandon Cooks for him. Great receiver, too, to have. CeeDee Lamb is in for another monster year this year. And Dak literally said he's not throwing 10 picks.
And people just hate on Dak.
He don't strike me as a liar. He seems like a genuine stand-up guy.
He does, and people hate him.
So when he says he's not throwing 10 picks, I believe it.
He's throwing 12. Or 20. God knows. But, he's going to be fine. He's just...
But, yeah,
if you want a safe quarterback to give you about 20 points a week, that's going to be kind of late, Dak is your guy.
Yes.
Dak is the answer.
He gives you the 30 upside, though.
He does.
I feel like, he hasn't really been as mobile as he was early in his career since the injury. Granted.
Rightfully
Understandable. So. Rightfully so. And the offensive line has been very up and down. But I think, like you said, Dak Prescott finishing his QB19, it was just absolutely a down year. That's really unlike him. They have a healthy O-line coming back.
Only played 12 games.
And he played 12 games, yeah. They bought in Brandon Cooks. Tony Pollard should be back healthy. I think this Dallas team's going to be all right. If there's a year that Dallas is, this is our year, this could be the year in theory. Yes, call it what you want. I know I'm high on the Eagles. I might like the Eagles a little bit, whatever. But as a pure fan and lover of the sport of football, I really think Dallas could make a run this year. And that does start with Dak Prescott. So I think he's back this year. I don't see another QB19 finish, obviously barring injuries in his future.
Yep, Dak is fine. Next guy we can talk about a little bit. It's Mr. Deshaun Watson. We both had him at QB 11. We're feeling a little bold about.
Where did you have my 10?
Huh?
Where did you have my QB 10?
Who is your QB 10? Oh, next up.
Oh, okay. Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
You want to talk about back? I'm super high on Deshaun Watson this year. How many games? Can you tell me how many games he played last year?
Let me see if I can find him. There he is. He played 6 games last year.
Okay.
He only had 90 points.
Yeah. Not that good last year. Finishes QB 36.
Don't even read his stats last year because they sucked.
Damn, they were bad. But you look at it like this. You know the deal. Deshaun Watson hadn't played football in, 2 years?
1 year and...
About a year and a half. Season and
solid
a
half, yes.
You're getting a full off-season back. He's getting a full off-season back where he doesn't... I don't know what is going on with that. I'm talking about this from a pure football projection standpoint. He's having this is full off-season back. The teams they bought in some weapons for him. They had a great draft. They bought in Elijah Moore, who I think is going to have a huge year this year. And just the fact that he gets to be with the team every single day, go through practice camp, come in as a starter week 1, and not have to go through the preseason, then sit out for, 12 games, and then just get thrown back in there. And they didn't have the easiest schedule either, if I remember correctly. I'm not quite sure. I could be wrong on that. But I really think Deshaun Watson, I think he's going to bounce back this year. Another guy with top 5 fantasy football quarterback upside just to his rushing ability. I could be dead wrong and he could just suck and just fall off and that was the end of his career, all that stuff that happened. But I think that Cleveland as a whole team, I think they have one of the better rosters on paper in the NFL top to bottom. And I really think that with the offensive line and with the offensive skill position players that they have around Deshaun Watson, I think he could be in for a monster year and easily finish as a top 5 quarterback this year.
Yeah, the Browns arguably have the best offensive line in football. Pairing that with Deshaun Watson is really disgusting because he's always been a deep ball type of thrower. Mm-hmm. You also give him Amari Cooper. You also bring in Elijah Moore, who is going to dominate the slot for him.
Yep.
Donovan Peoples-Jones, who I think is pretty good at football.
He was good. He was great last year for them.
I think he's good at football. People hate him. But
I feel like he was like a weekly flex guy in fantasy last year.
Down bad flex, but I see the division.
Yeah.
Drafted Cedric Tillman. Not sure what he's going to do, but 3rd round pick might bring something out of him. The offense should be firing. The defense, on the other hand, also great. They have one of the best D-lines in football with Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith. Mm-hmm. They are deep all the way through. There should be no problems with this football team. They should roll, and I could definitely see playoffs for them, without a doubt. Absolutely. I could see them winning the division. Wouldn't surprise me.
Who's in that division?
The best division of football.
Yeah,
but still,
they could.
Still could.
In theory, barring injuries, and if all these teams pan out, this could be a 4 playoff. I say it every year about one or two divisions, but I think that if there's a year for all 4 teams to make the playoffs, I think it could be this division this year.
The Browns are arguably the best team in that division. They just don't have the superstars.
If Watson's back, that division's in trouble.
If Watson's Texans Watson, yeah, they're...
Yes, 100%.
But that's a big if. So
mm-hmm.
Next up,
Kirk Cousins. I love this guy so much. I watched Netflix did a documentary. It was him, Mariota, and Matt Mahomes. I love Kirk Cousins. All the slander, Kirk, if you're watching this, I'm sorry for all the slander. You're a great stand-up guy. You're a family man.
I saw a clip. I saw like a picture. Like he was talking about walking on water or something.
Dude lost a playoff game of the Giants. Went home, put his kids to bed, sung them their nightly Bible verses, and prayed with them. And like, dude opens fan mail, signs cards people send him. Like, what a guy! A guy that gets hate for no reason.
Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott.
Yes.
Kirk Cousins, Anthony had him at 10, I had him at 13. 13 might be a little bit too steep for him. But QB6 last year.
Kind of hating, damn.
I don't think there's like I said, I don't think there's a big gap between 10 and 15.
That's fair.
I genuinely don't. Because Geno, Tua, I think can do just as good as.
Yeah,
I think
fair.
they're all like they're like the same teams. They have great receivers. They throw the ball a lot. Kirk Cousins lost Dalvin Cook, so it should be more passes in theory. Adam Thielen, I don't think will be a hit. Jalen Rager's probably better than Adam Thielen, and you got Justin Jefferson. What?
Jalen Rager?
No. Jordan Addison.
I was like, are you out of your
Would you give me a break?
mind?
Would you give me a break?
Listen,
Give me a break.
you said that
You
so...
know what I meant.
I didn't, because you said that so confidently.
Yeah, because I just... whatever.
You said that so confidently.
Jordan Addison, probably better than Adam Thielen. It will be, definitely. Or should be, definitely. I don't know if he will be year one, but...
Yeah.
TJ Hawkinson's there for a full offseason.
Oh, he's so bad.
The
So overrated.
offensive coordinator for the coach of the Vikings throws the ball a lot.
Kevin O'Connell.
He throws the ball a shit ton.
Yeah, he
and
does.
we kind of knew this was going to happen. Did happen last year. Could happen again this year. But Kirk Cousins, I mean, he don't run the ball ever.
He had 2 rushing tutties with 100 yards.
Yeah. Listen, Kirk Cousins, I think this, like I said, I think this gap from, you can argue 9 with Dak Prescott, all the way up until like 14, 15, I think are all very, very close together. I just happen to have Kirk at 13.
I mean, in theory, all these top 20 guys, except maybe 1 or 2 or 3 on my list, could be like top 10 guys.
I think it's like...
It's tough to say that, though, just because the league is not going to have 20 amazing quarterbacks.
It's like 1, 2, 3 to 8, and then it's like 9 to 15, and then it's like the Flyers.
Yeah.
And Kirk could easily be, number 7 again. Wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if he's right next to Herbert. It wouldn't. But
yeah.
It is what it is.
I mean, yeah, Kirk Cousins, stand-up guy, family guy. Love the dude to death, man. Just really just takes off every Tuesday and spends the day with his family. I mean, just what a guy. Who does that?
Next up, Geno Smith. This was the exact opposite for Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith. Anthony had Geno at 13. I had Geno at 10. Geno was quarterback 5 last year. He was one spot better than Kirk Cousins. Talk about another team with a shit ton of receivers. The Seattle Seahawks. They got DK, Tyler Lockett, JSN, Pete Carroll, who seems to now he's throwing the ball a shit ton.
I'm telling you, Pete Carroll is just a quarterback guru, bro. Guy just knows how to develop quarterbacks.
Geno threw the ball 572 times. I would say that's pretty high. And Seattle's one of the fast-paced offenses in football. So with running a lot of plays, Geno's kind of bust-proof. He's going to throw the ball a lot. He's going to be right with Kirk Cousins. They're going to be right next to each other at the end of the year.
That's fair.
No matter, they could be 7, 8, 9, 10. They're going to be next to each other.
Geno had 360 rushing yards last year. That ain't terrible.
Geno's a guy.
Yeah. Who was next?
Tua Tagovailoa.
I had Tua as my QB 12. You
So
had him at 12 as well.
Tua is the riskiest quarterback in football.
Yes. Where did he finish last year?
15 and 13 games.
15 and 13 games.
Yeah,
Tua is...
his game log was...
I mean, dude, the upside is there. Like, it's just... If Tua stayed healthy last year, he probably would have been an MVP frontrunner with the way he was playing.
Tua...
But the injuries are just so scary, dude.
Yeah, I mean, he missed... I would argue 6 games.
Especially with the concussion, dude. Like, if he gets, like, a blow to the head, he may... consider, like, not hopefully, knock on wood, he could consider it a career. I mean, taking that, like, Tua, like you said, he's scary in terms of a fantasy quarterback.
Tua, I would love for him to be my backup fantasy quarterback. Would absolutely love it. If you're in a super flex and you have Tua, spend some pretty good capital on a QB3. just because of the fact that Tua could miss the whole entire season. He is the riskiest player injury-wise.
Yes.
It sucks to say. The truth is what it is. Tua is a baller. I love Tua. But, it is what it is.
I saw he finished his arm sleeve.
Tua gained some respect.
I saw it after I made my rankings, and I was really upset about it. But I saw he finished his arm sleeve, dude. And
as long as Tua got a little bit more respect,
he would have got bumped from. Honestly, he probably would have got bumped from 12 to and probably took Justin Herbert's spot and just slid everyone down one.
Just switch them. Just move Herbert down to 12. Piss on it.
I was just thinking move Tua and just everyone will be down one more. But I mean that the tribal arm sleeve, bro, on his throwing arm too, I think it was. Damn, dude, that's a bad dude.
Next up, we got Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers, the most overrated quarterback in our generation.
Thinking I might have put Aaron Rodgers a little bit too high, putting him here.
Where did you have him?
Lower than you. Anthony had him at 14. I had him at 16.
Really?
Yeah.
You think that's low?
I think it's a little too... I think it should be 17, 18.
I feel like anywhere from 14 to 17 is about right for Aaron Rodgers, just because he took a giant step back last year, and I think I could have been right all along that Devontae Adams was the only reason that Aaron Rodgers was ever good at football and all the elite playmakers that he had around him throughout his career.
Last year he was QB 13. He was QB 13 last year. I thought he was miserable last year.
I mean, I don't.
He played every game, I think.
Yeah.
When you play every game, it helps.
I mean, who did he finish? Who did he finish above though?
Hold on, let me read this shit. He was QB 13. Let me read you. This is how miserable it is owning this guy. He was QB 32 week 1, 17, 13, 14, 14, 20, 12, 20, 13, 10. Yeah, that's one good week against Dallas. Of 13,
that was
27, 19, 22, 14, 13, 17. He was one time. He was a QB1. QB, top 12 QB in a week. One freaking time.
I mean, who did he finish above, though, that, you would have thought was... I mean, that's about right. I feel like the way the quarterbacks played last year, because he finished above Lamar, who missed games, Tua, who missed games, Russell Wilson, who sucked, Derek Carr, who had a down year, Kyler, who was out, Dak had a down year. Then you got, Mariota Mills, Andy Dalton, Mac Jones, Jacoby Brissett, Jimmy G, Ryan Tannehill, Matt Ryan, Kenny Pickett, Baker, Taylor Heineke, Carson Wentz, and Matt Stafford. I mean, I guess that's about right for him. I feel like, in theory, QB 13 for Aaron Rodgers after the season he had last year is bad. But looking at the quarterbacks below him, it makes sense.
Aaron Rodgers played a full season. If he didn't, then he wouldn't nowhere be.
So, in theory, there was 12 good quarterbacks last year. Then the cutoff was Tom Brady at 12.
Depends on how you
in terms of
look at
fantasy.
I mean, because you're only looking at full season stats, but Tua was a good quarterback for when he played. You have to look at.
I'm talking about season long.
Season long is so. Tua was better than Aaron Rodgers last year.
I know. Yeah, I would agree. And Tua's.
I would rather have a quarterback give me 6 great weeks than Aaron Rodgers give me 17 mid-ass weeks.
And 1 top 10 week.
And that's what Aaron Rodgers did.
Yeah.
And that's what he might do this season. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I like what the Jets have around him in terms of Breece Hall. They're the second betting favorites that landed Dalvin Cook. They have Garrett Wilson, who's probably in for a big year, was a great receiver last year with just the what's the word I'm looking, with the plethora of quarterbacks that they had last year. He's got other weapons around him. Who else was on that team? They bought in his boy Allen Lazard. Randall Cobb's on that team. Who are their other receivers?
Aaron Rodgers, Corey Davis, Mecole Hardman, Randall Cobb, Allen Lazard. Aaron Rodgers has never been a great fantasy quarterback. I mean, he did have 2 MVP seasons, but it's still it's hard owning this guy just because of the fact that he doesn't care too much. He'll put up.
Yeah, he just goes and plays football.
250 and 2 touchdowns, and be super efficient, but he just don't care. He's not giving you a bunch of stats, and that's what's going to happen again this year. He's just going to be an alright quarterback.
See, maybe we could get an Aaron Rodgers on a mission to go win a Super Bowl, though. You could. I look at it like this: if you buy into the hype of Aaron Rodgers, if you think Garrett Wilson can be near the similar level as Devontae Adams was and go out there and score over 10 touchdowns, be a 1,000-yard plus receiver and be that much of a difference maker for an offense against a defense. Because if you look, Devontae Adams was amazing his whole time with Aaron Rodgers. As soon as he left, Aaron Rodgers fell off a cliff. I would argue that this Jets team has a better O-line than the Packers had in Aaron Rodgers' final few years there. Probably about a similar running back room, depending on how you look at it. And pretty much similar receiver rooms with Cobb, Lazard, and like a Mecole Hardman, like about the same tier of guys. But if you think Garrett Wilson can be as efficient and as good as Devontae Adams was, then buy into the Aaron Rodgers hype. If you believe that, then I'm sure Aaron Rodgers will be good, but there is a complete world where Aaron Rodgers is just overrated as shit, like I've been saying, and I was right about him. That's how I look at it. If that makes sense.
I mean, we don't know yet, but
yeah.
It's hard when your number one receiver leaves.
That's fair.
And I don't care how good. I mean, Tom Brady's like the only one that's ever had success without somebody to throw the ball to.
Yeah.
Next up, Danny Dimes. Anthony had him at 16. I had him at 14. Danny Dimes could be a top 10 quarterback. Shit, he was last year. He finished as number 9. He had a couple games last year where he was QB8, QB3, QB3, QB9, QB2. He also had his bad fantasy games where he was QB25, where he was QB21. I think Danny Dimes is in for a pretty decent year this year. I looked at their depth chart the other day, and their receiving core is just the most mid-receiving core in football.
That's terrible.
Saquon might sit out games, so it's something to look
I
out for.
doubt it. He'll sit out camp, and he'll come back week 1, and they'll work out a deal. No way he sits out.
There's no working out deals. It's over.
I know, but they work behind the scenes.
Hodgins, Slayton, Campbell, Wandale, Hyatt, Shepard, Jamison Crowder. The most mid-receiving
Delaware legend David Stills.
Gary Brightwell, Delaware legend.
Mm-hmm.
They have 2 good tackles, and their defense.
John Michael Schmitz, rookie center.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Danny Dimes is going to be okay. I'm not drafting him because I refuse to watch Giants football.
I respect it, but if you think that Daniel Jones, if they say Saquon's coming back, Saquon's going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder again like he was last year. They bought in a Darren Waller, and Daniel Jones made it work last year with just Saquon and the same receiving room now. So if you think that Darren Waller can be that much of a difference maker, which I think Daniel Jones can easily finish as a top 10 guy again.
Yeah. I don't think there's much to talk about there. I will not be owning him, but I see.
Fair.
Next up, Derek Carr.
Yes, finally, a good quarterback.
Daniel Jones and Aaron Rodgers were tied on this. Derek Carr is also tied with the next guy.
Derek Carr, I had it 15. You had it.
I didn't have him ranked. I just put him at 21 on the list.
Okay. I have Derek Carr at QB 15 this year. Derek Carr, he had a down year last year, obviously. Had some, not falling out, but his time in Vegas was kind of over when he decided to dismiss himself from the team for the final weeks, and they bought in Jarrett Stidham to be the starter. Went to New Orleans for a reason, signed a massive deal. New Orleans is probably a very good situation for him. He's finally got a good O-line. He has stud receiver in Chris Olave, who's going to have a second-year breakout season. Michael Thomas, in theory, should be back healthy. They got Juwan Johnson at tight end this year. Talk about him next week. They have a pretty good O-line. You don't know what you're getting from Alvin Kamara. They bought in Jamal Williams, and they drafted another running back. This is probably one of the better situations we've seen Derek Carr in since 2015 or 16 when the Raiders made their last big playoff run before Derek Carr got injured.
Latavius Murray, Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree.
Yeah. This is probably the best team he's been on since then, arguably, because it's a complete team. Good receivers, good running backs, great offensive line. I think Derek Carr is a bounce-back year. He sits at about around QB 15 every year. He does have the upside where he will air the ball out. He has deep threats in Chris Olave and a check-down guy in a short pass guy in Michael Thomas. And I just truly think that Derek Carr is always a safe QB pick. He's got a good O-line this year. And if you believe in the Saints and Derek Carr and him having a bounce-back year, take a shot on him. Again, the rankings, like you said, from 10 to however, it's not that far off. I could arguably have put Derek Carr over Kirk Cousins, Watson, or Tua. I just think he fits around the 15 range. He sits around QB 15. On a down year, he finishes QB 17 last year, just to put it in some perspective. So that's where I'm at with it.
I'm a little bit different with Derek Carr. I think he is in the tier below where Anthony's putting him. I think he's with like the Matt Staffords, the Russell Wilsons, the Jared Goffs of the world, me personally. Because, I mean, even when he was having great seasons, he was never a top 10 quarterback in fantasy-wise. Even when he had, Michael Crabtree and Amari Cooper. I do think Derek Carr can have a pretty good season. I do think that he could be a pretty solid quarterback, too. I think the floor is going to be pretty high with him.
Yeah.
Just because the team's going to be, I think, solid. He's playing against the Falcons twice, and, he's playing against the Bucs twice. Yeah. So, in theory, he should have some success there. But Derek Carr, I think, is going to have a pretty good season.
Did you purposely not say Carolina twice?
They have a decent defense. They have an okay defense. I mean, shit. Okay, whatever. Next up, Ant Rich. Anthony didn't have him ranked. I had him at 15.
See, rookies are so tough to rank.
I'm high on the guy.
I mean, I don't blame you. I just...
Ant Rich, he's a guy that sucked in college, passing the ball wise.
Sucked.
That is an understatement.
You called it somebody's catching strays this episode.
I have him at 15. However, if he starts for 17 football games, there is absolutely no way in hell that this guy is not a top 15 quarterback. I refuse to believe it. If he starts every single game, there's just no way.
It's fair.
Because of his rushing abilities, because he's 6'4", 244 pounds, and can run the ball like Cam Newton, there is not a damn way that he's under quarterback 15 in my eyes.
I respect it.
If he just gets a little bit better at throwing the ball, he could just beat Justin Fields throwing the ball wise, and he will be fine fantasy wise.
Listen, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you. I just don't really like to throw rookies up here just because you truly don't know what you're going to get.
That's all about taking the shot,
I'm more of a conservative.
You're going to put Bijan in your top 3? But he's a rookie, though.
It's so different.
I know. It's rushing quarterbacks, it's kind of not. Because that's a cheat code.
Principle is... Based off principle, it's different, but it's not. I see what you're saying, but at the same time, I look at it from my perspective.
Yeah, like Justin Fields wasn't that good at pass, but that man could run, and that helped him. And Rich, I can see the same thing.
It's fair.
Next up, we got Matt Stafford. Anthony had him at 18. I have him at 19. Matt Stafford is a guy who I think could be a pretty decent sleeper. The reason is I think Matt Stafford could be around top 10. I think. The way I drew out the Rams season my head.
Let's hear it.
The defense is going to be absolutely dog shit.
Yes.
Just horrible, terrible.
Yep.
Just bad. The offense leaves a lot to be desired also.
So where are you going with this?
This team is going to suck. This team's going to get blown out.
Yes.
However, this team has Matthew Stafford and has Cooper Kupp. These two guys are going to throw the ball around the damn yard. I believe it wholeheartedly. Matthew Stafford is going to put up an empty-ass Detroit Lions stat line. He's going to put up some fantasy points. I believe it. I think he has a chance to. Listen, if he could easily be my QB3 any day of the damn week. In a dynasty, he's going like round 18. I would love for Matthew Stafford to be my QB3.
I don't even know if the Rams are so... I think if the Rams suck this year, they're going to go with like Stetson Bennett. They tried to trade Matt Stafford this offseason for a reason. And with his injury history, listen to who's blocking for him. Joe Newtboom, Steve Avila, who's a rookie, Brian Allen, Coleman Shelton, and Rob Havenstein, with the only depth piece of Alaric Jackson.
But he has Cooper Kupp, and he's going to get blown out.
Okay, so when teams, when they run a base 4-3 defense, they're getting there in 4 seconds. And what is he, just throwing it up in the air? It's going to get...
You're not forgetting the fourth quarter. Matt Stafford will put up 10 points in the fourth quarter. Every time. Religiously.
I am not buying into the hype of the Rams this year. I said Matt Stafford...
I'm not saying they're going to be good.
Listen, I said Matt Stafford is QB 18 just because it's... I mean, now that I think about it, I should have switched my 20th guy with my 18th guy. But I guess it's too late now.
Yeah.
I don't see it with them this year. I think we're looking at a really bad Detroit Lions team this year with throwing it back with the Rams.
Well, if you're looking at a bad Detroit Lions team, Matthew Stafford finished as 5, 9, 7, 15, 8, 6, and 7. So, he's back.
37-year-old Matt Stafford.
35.
Nice.
Prime Matt Stafford is back.
Okay.
Russell Wilson is next up. Anthony, I'm at 19. I am at 18. I probably put that man too high. There's no way in hell. Russell Wilson, he finished his QB 16 last year, and he barely threw any touchdown passes. So I don't know how he did that at all, but he managed to do it. He had more bathrooms and touchdown passes.
More bathrooms?
Yeah,
Oh, shit. Yeah, right. I was confused. I was like, did you just botch that?
The last 4 weeks, he was pretty good. But, listen, the Broncos are such a hard team because Sean Payton's a good coach, and he might turn things around miraculously.
This receiver room is so loaded.
See, you say that, but damn, they suck.
On paper, they're
Yeah.
they're 8 deep.
On paper, they're great. However, Tim Patrick gets hurt every year.
Tim Patrick's
Jerry
the best
Jeudy
receiver
just
on his
sucks.
team. It's what it sounds.
Courtland Sutton's horrible too.
Coming out of Denver, it sounds like Tim Patrick is the best receiver on his Broncos team. I mean, I think that Sean Payton could turn things around.
Oh my god!
With how dynamic he runs his offense, I think it's good for Russell Wilson, especially with the Samaje Perine coming in as a dynamic pass-catching running back who can be that bell cow guy when Javonte Williams has a terrible season back off the injury. On paper, they drafted Marvin Mims in the second round. You have first-round pick Jerry Jeudy. Courtland Sutton was a third-round pick, and Tim Patrick's been a stud every year. He bought in his guy Marquez Callaway. They have KJ Hamler and Lil Jordan Humphrey, who was a Saint. They have Greg Dulcich, who Sean Payton is using as his Taysom Hill kind of player, just without the quarterback. He's playing in the slot. He's playing at tight end. He's getting snaps all over the place. They bought in Mike McGlinchey to be out of the backfield. They got Quinn Miners, third-round Division III pick. Lloyd Cushenberry, Ben Powers, and Garrett Bowles. And I just sold myself on the Broncos. They're so back. Russell Wilson is going to have a good year this year, and the Broncos are so back.
Next up's Jared Goff. Anthony had him at 20. I had him at 17.
Where did you have my 17 guy? Not ranked?
Next up.
Okay.
I didn't rank his ass. He sucks.
Jared Goff. I think he's going to be good this year. Jared Goff.
Finished as QB 10 last year on a Detroit Lions team that was kind of exciting. They scored a lot of points. They allowed a lot of points, and I think we could be in for a similar situation this year. He has Amon-Ra St. Brown once again. His running back is Jahmyr Gibbs, who is going to probably play more games than DeAndre Swift. Receiving room took a hit. There's no TJ Hawkinson. Who's their number 2?
J-Mo when he gets back.
The receiving room isn't that good.
I mean, they did it last. You think about it, they did it last year though with just Amon-Ra, with Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond. They did it last year and made it work. And they traded Hawkinson halfway through the season. I'm not reading too much into it. And they bought in Marvin Jones Jr.
Jared Goff's going to be a solid QB2 for your football team, and that is all I have to say about it.
I mean,
Solid QB2. It's nice and fair for him, right?
their O-line is really good. When Graham Glasgow is a backup on your O-line, you have a great O-line. Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, Hal Vaitai, Penei Sewell. Yeah, I mean, I think the Lions. I don't think Jared Goff has a top 10 year like he did last year, but I can very well see it again. I just don't know how sold I am in terms of Jared Goff coming out here and repeating the same thing
He's
he
in
did
that
last year.
15 to 20 tier. If he plays all
fair.
his games,
Yeah.
he'll be fine. Next up, Kenny Pickett. Anthony, I'm 17. I'm at 22. Steelers, man, the standard is 8-8.
I have a lot of Steelers rank. This Steelers team is weird. I think Kenny Pickett, just based off the talent they have around him, I think that he could have a. Broderick Jones is not even the starter. Jesus. Okay.
According to ESPN, training camp hasn't even started yet.
With the talent around him, I think that the potential's there for Kenny Pickett, and he can have a. Where did he finish last year? Can you check for me while I talk about this? I mean, they have Najee Harris and Jalen Warren in the backfield. The receiver room, Deontay,
28.
George Pickens, Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin.
He averaged about 10 points a game.
With Pat Fryermuth and Darnell Washington, they helped out the offensive line a lot. Drafting Broderick Jones, who's arguably the best O-lineman. They bought in Isaac Seumalo. They have Mason Cole, who Steelers fans love. Chukwuma Okafor, James Daniels, with Nate Herbig, Kevin Dotson, and Kendrick Green. This is a deep, deep Steelers offense in general with a really good defense. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Kenny Pickett's going to go finish top 5. But I think Kenny Pickett could give you some serviceable starts week to week if you have an injury or a quarterback on bye. I think Kenny Pickett's going to be a solid streamer all year. I think he'll be good for about 20-ish, 15, 20 points a week. They did bring in Allen Robinson, too, may I add. So
I think Kenny Pickett is a 10 to 15 guy.
I would say he's about 15, 17, 20-ish.
Right around ambitious. Kenny Pickett would not be on my teams. Next up, Kyler Murray could play week 1. He's trying to. We could see. If Kyler Murray plays, 10 games, he's going to be on my fantasy football team. He's been a top 10 quarterback pretty much his whole entire career. And fantasy-wise, he is kind of fantasy bust-proof because of his ability to pass the ball.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's really a question mark there. I could see myself drafting him on teams. I mean, if you get, Kyler Murray, you get another quarterback. If you're in a super flex, you get your stud quarterback, you get Kyler Murray, and then you get a quarterback with an easy start to the season, then you're solid when Kyler Murray comes back. That's how I feel about it. And I like Kyler Murray this year.
Do you have any other sleepers that you wanted to touch on? Because I have a few.
Go ahead. I'll find some.
I'm not really going to sit here and go too much in depth, but if you're in the last round of your draft and you want to just take a quarterback instead of a position or a player that's not like a Henry Ruggs or just one of those meme guys, go ahead and take a shot on like a Sam Howell. Went 3-0 as a starter in Washington, I think, last year when he started. Threw the ball a lot, aired the ball out really well. A Desmond Ridder, I think the Falcons are going to make some noise on offense this year. Or a C.J. Stroud. Or like Ryan said, I don't know where Anthony Richardson's going, but if you want to grab a C.J. Stroud or Ant Rich, those quarterbacks with high upside rookies, I would go ahead and grab one of those guys. I think C.J. Stroud's the best in the class, but those are just some sleeper quarterbacks. If you decide to wait till last minute and you end up with like a Aaron Rodgers is your QB1, go ahead and grab one of those guys at the end of the draft just for some upside at quarterback.
Yeah, for me, I would say my sleepers, Anthony Richardson, like you said, Matt Stafford, I think, could be in for a decent year, and Kyler Murray.
That's fair, respected. And that is going to wrap. This is a little bit of a long one. If you stayed to the end, thank you. Shout out to you. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Be sure to be on the lookout for our fantasy football mock draft. I would say it's probably going to come out on Thursday, if I had to guess. So be sure to check that out. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys later this week.
See ya.
Peace.